Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really happy to be here to introduce Angelique Spaninks, who is my old friend. And we have been working almost 7 years together, like so on and off, more even. So we are really happy to invite Angelique here, who is the director of MU. It's a bit like a Queen's House. It's like an art center in Netherlands, in Eindhoven. And also Angelique has been directed the Battery Awards, which is a bio art and design award in the Netherlands. It's one of the crucial awards. She has been done this 15 years, and she has a show to travel as well. So that's all really advantage of her to did a lot of research on it. And for us, we are also benefit on her research. We have a collaboration on the exhibition upstairs here. And so, for instance, we have Cassia's and also Lucy's work, which is recommended by Angelique. So which is really, really nice. We just had a lunch together and we had a talk. And we think at this time, it's a booming time of internet. You get mounts of information explode in front of your computer. But in the meantime, how you find a right understanding of those informations. Like what Angelique was on the table was literally saying, those exchange to meet right people, to discussion about it, and to make a cultural exchange, and to asking people what other experts' opinion is making drive of these ideas. Unfortunately, we will have a typhoon, and we are all waiting for that typhoon. We unfortunately do this lecture online, but of course, we also have been, like curator team, have been waiting for Angelique lecture for quite a while. So in Chinese we said 贵人多风雨. That means knowledge people or rich people or important people always come with a lot of rain and wind. But we get the strongest wind today, and that's 贵人多风雨 is for you, which is actually it's really good compromise, but not a really good words for really good sign for really nice lecture. So now we listen to her lecture, but I assume this lecture will be really fresh for everyone, but it might be a little difficult. But we would like to bring a new knowledge, bring a new understanding on Macau, and to share with everyone. But it's also nice we share now on the video, so everyone can get this lecture online. So there's no distance between us and the people. Okay, now we would like to invite Angelique Spaninks to start her lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gang. Hello to all, and thank you for inviting me to talk about my practice as a curator of contemporary arts. As said, my name is Angelique, and my last name you spell Spaninks, which is quite difficult. But to first answer the question this biennial asks to every visitor, what brings me here is an almost 10-year friendship. I think we go back 10 years. An artistic exchange with curators Liu Gang and Feng Boyi, and a fascination or maybe even love for the many faces of China. Due to COVID-19, it has been a few years, but I'm glad to be back to share some insights about how we see cross-pollinations between art, design, science, and society flourish. Unfortunately, nature is stirring its raging head as super typhoon Regaza makes it impossible for us to get entangled in dialogue. But who knows, that may happen online afterwards or in another dimension. For now, I am happy I can at least talk to you via the live stream. So let me start with a personal note. Last September 1st, my team at MU Hybrid Art House threw me a surprise party to celebrate exactly 20 years of running the program at our 1,000 square meter testing ground for experimental art, design, and science collaborations. Besides being emotionally overwhelmed by the enthusiasm and cheer from many artist friends present, it also offered a throwback to all we achieved. Like the way in which curatorial collaborations and conversations can really support young artists to take steps they would not be able to take without. Steps that push not only their own boundaries, but also mine as a curator, and most important, those of the audience experiencing their work and questioning and re-envisioning what they think are its and moreover what art can be. What attracts me most in the arts is the way it opens up deeply rooted realities and dominant systems by creating possible alternatives, speculative sidesteps, and touching both utopian and dystopian tales. It builds alternate worlds, and I am paraphrasing philosopher Donna Haraway here, it matters what stories make worlds, what worlds make stories. And that makes me come to the title of this lecture. Hybrid Tales for Hybrid Times, a title I used only once before to celebrate MU's 25th anniversary in 2023. Back then we gave 25 artists, young and older, working alone or in collectives from the Netherlands and far abroad, the space to create or recreate work that in their opinion and practice embodies what hybrid art is or can be. Not to narrowly define it, but to explore its possibilities, stretch its boundaries, and open up dialogues about past, current, and future scenarios, as we cannot deny we are living in turbulent times that are changing so rapidly we sometimes don't even notice, or notice so directly that we are cooked before we even see the fire. But of course, even though I don't really feel the need to define what hybrid art, tales and hybrid art can be, I do want to get you all at the tip of your chair, so here we go. Hybrid art is a laboratory where visual inquiry meets scientific method, where design thinking becomes experimental protocol. It thrives in the fertile tensions between observation and imagination, between the intuitive leaps of artists and researchers' systematic probes. It's when the studio and the exhibition space become testing grounds, where biological patterns inform digital algorithms, where data visualization feeds into new immersive languages that are not only explored for their aesthetics, but also get critically analyzed, where materials sciences open unexplored territories for sculptural expression and artistic use of new materials opens up applications beyond the pure functional. It is the realm where artists and scientists, preferably working closely together, become investigators and inventors, using the tools of one discipline to unlock the hidden or even unwelcome potentials of another. It is art that asks, what if? What if we could see sound, touch information, inhabit mathematical space? It feeds on the cross-pollination between fields, the designer's understanding of systems merged with the biologist's knowledge of emergence, the physicist's grasp of forces channeled through the sculptor's hands, the coder's logic woven into the painter's gesture, and even the non-human entities' wisdoms seeping through the porous membranes of the humanities as well as the natural and formal sciences. Hybrid art pushes against the comfortable boundaries of what each medium can do. It stretches canvas into interface, transforms gallery into ecosystem, makes the invisible tangible. It operates at the edges where disciplines blur, creating different tools, new materials, other ways of seeing. It is research through making. discovery through doing, knowledge born from the generous collision of curiosities. It is art as shapeshifter, medium as conversation, creativity as constant becoming in complexities. It are some sort of cadaver exquis, exquisite corpses of our current times. Just like the first time I used the title Hybrid Tales for Hybrid Times, I thought of using it in a similar way for this occasion. So I decided to take you on a curatorial tour by introducing 20 artists I have worked with over the years, and I still follow and find highly influential in their field. That way, this lecture itself is becoming a sort of hybrid tale, and you will even see 3 artists whose works you cannot only see here on screen, but for real in the biennial exhibition. The tour consists of 6 longer videos in which artists and often also the scientists they work with talk about their collaborations themselves, as they know better than I ever can. 2 shorter clips, and then there are 12 introductions I will talk you through. Of course, it is only a selection of the many hundreds of artists I've worked with and gotten to know over the 20 years of my practice, but they stand out for their hybrid nature and willingness to cross-pollinate. Sometimes, and I believe even more than ever before, although I did not properly research the numbers, artists are often hybrids themselves, working in many disciplines and sometimes even trained in different territories like science. In fact, one of our recent Ministers of Education, Arts and Sciences, Robert Dijkgraaf, is a world-famous physicist who has been leading the Institute of Advanced Study in Princeton, but also went to art school and then became a politician in order to change the system from within. Next to that, I consider them to be a sort of sentinel species, a term I learned from one of them, Cecil Mariton. A sentinel species is a guard. They keep watch over the world and often translate a sense of where we are heading in a very personal and telling way before we sense it ourselves. They sense the stories of worlds and build worlds of stories in words and symbols, in movements and sounds, with matter and mind. So here you have an overview of the 20 artists I selected for this curatorial tour, and I will take you through all of their work. The first one is Danish-born Cecil Mariton. I've worked with her several times and will do again in the coming years. She has won a Bio Art and Design Award in 2020. You will hear this come back often, so it's a Bio Art and Design Award, but we call it BAD Award. So when you hear the abbreviation, you know it's about bio art. I will tell you all about the remarkable film Becoming a Sentinel Species. She can do that best herself, so now there will be a video.
scientists, they already have artist mindsets, so they're really going full on with speculating along with me and think a little bit further than what we can say is actual scientific knowledge right now. So I think we're all sort of like wanting each other's job a little bit, which is good.
So as you can see with Sissel, fluids like water and blood are carriers of complex stories. You could say we are all bodies of water, like hydro-feminist Astrida Naimanis states, connecting ecology and feminist theory and fluidly interconnecting us to the natural world, urging us to care for the water of the planet and all that lives with and in it, dissolving the rigid boundaries between self and other, inside and outside, human and non-human. This ethical and radical way of thinking I see also in the work of Dutch artist Xandra van der Eyck, who also won a BAD Award in 2017. But the first time I brought her work to MU was in 2016, when we commissioned Estuaries, the work you see on the right. Estuaries are transition zones between freshwater and saltwater environments. They are areas of exchange, usually rich in nutrients and providing conditions for sea life to flourish. This potential abundance is overshadowed, however, as more than half of the human population concentrates near estuaries. The human influence on the biology and ecology of estuaries is significant, and is the inspiration for the tensions demonstrated in this work. Estuary forces saline and freshwater fluids together in a closed system. As saltwater algae within battle decay due to their hostile environment, plentiful freshwater life springs from its forced death. What's visible is the colorful behavior of living organisms struggling to manage a situation orchestrated by human hands. The circle of life unfolds over time, and the process can be tracked through the change of color. First, the algae decay, dissolving its pigments in the water, which gives the beautiful red, pinkish colors. Over a period of a week, the water colors from light pink to intense fluorescent red and pink shades. As the nutrients are being consumed by bacteria, their colonies bloom, changing the color of each column separately, depending on the algae type inside and the accidental presence and battle of survival of the bacteria. In another 2 weeks' time, colors change from pink to green, blue, and even black. Eventually, after about 4 weeks, all nutrients are consumed, and the man-made ecosystem leads to a hypoxic zone in which no life is longer possible. A more recent work of Xandra that is just as visually enchanting but ethically critical is called Mother of Pearl, which you see on the left side. For this, you enter a dark room where around 40 empty mussel shells encased in glass seem to be floating. A little light illuminates their pearlescent skin, drawing attention to tiny acts of violence. Starting pearls. Pearls are the result of the self-defense tactic of the mussel. When they are penetrated by an unknown substance, they encapsulate the intruder in a biogeolayer that is mother of pearl. They keep doing this until they die, incorporating the polluter into the shell. Throughout history, pearls have sparked legends and stories of beauty, mysticism, war, and value. Riverine pearls have always been a major coveted item. They were and are a source of extensive pearl industry along riverbanks. But in the Netherlands, the most famous local pearl-producing mussel has long gone extinct. Mussels are vital to a riverine ecosystem, though, being able to filter water at an astonishing rate. At the same time, this makes them extremely vulnerable, as every substance in the water passes through their bodies. With their long lifespan, their decline is not immediately noticeable. Yet when elders die off without a new generation to follow them up, the riverine ecosystem topples like a house of cards. The third artist I like to bring here is Polish Kasia Molga, living and working from the UK. She brings in the sea as her favorite body of water in many of her works. The work I like to talk about here is also part of the biennial, so you can go see it for yourself. It's called How to Make an Ocean. It connects marine life with human tears, personal loss with environmental grief. Consisting of 4 parts, it reaches out to all who mourn regardless of the reason to make a connection, create awareness and have a space to grieve, where no tear is shed in vain. From winter of 2019 until recently, Kasia has been collecting her own tears. With the start of COVID-19, she trained herself to cry in order to relieve her anxiety, and then to explore the chemical composition of human tears to see how they could make a healthy, tiny marine ecosystem, because they're salty. To use her own tears to host a sea life became a form of catharsis and a constructive way to deal with personal and environmental loss. In addition to that, Kasia started investigating how her mental health and level of aforementioned anxiety is affected by the narrative of her online life, news and info feeds which were curated by algorithms. She started to wonder whether she could use this to cry and thus feed her mini-oceans. This resulted in the creation of a moirologist bot modeled after professional mourners from the past. They were invited to wakes and funerals to cry, and with that encourage other mourners to cry too. The moirologist bot is a digital revival of this bygone job. It is an algorithm which scans environmental news headlines from major online media outlets every few minutes and then assesses the need to cry. Based on this assessment, it selects a video from the growing number of videos, and when collected together into a 10 or 15 minutes experience, they provide prompts and atmosphere helping to relax, meditate, reflect, and hopefully cry a bit. What you see on the picture is a shot from the workshop Kasia gave at MU, in which participants could gather their own tears, carefully put them in one of the tiny glass holders, and add a small piece of seaweed to it that would live off its nutrients, a silencing experience. Next up is American-Chinese artist Annie Liu, who also uses fluid but stays even closer to the body, with her personal The Ghosts You Haven't Been. She won a BAD Award in 2018. The installation you see here consists of 9 parts, each measuring the artist's height and each glass vitrine holding the artist's liquid volume. As a set, they examine personhood from many angles: anatomical, psychological, genetic, biochemical, behavioral, algorithmic, personal, narrative, and memory. With this highly complex project integrating technology into water, Annie Liu reflects and analyzes how recent technological innovations allow us to redesign ourselves profoundly, from networked prosthetics and artificial intelligence to the genetic code of life itself. It is asking profound questions like, can our behaviors be reduced to algorithms? Can our bodies be upgraded with non-organic integrations? Can sentience itself be manufactured in a lab? In many ways, this installation is an emotional confrontation with being quantifiable. After being premiered at MU, it went on tour to several locations around the world and has been on view in China too, at Kronos Art Center in Shanghai in 2022 and at Chengdu Biennial in 2023. Another artist I've been working with for years, that is also become a friend, is driven by the most innovative life sciences and combining them with ancient rituals and new social structures. She's the British artist Charlotte Jarvis, who has won a BAD Award in 2012, even before I got involved, and has since been a regular at MU showing different works, but also working with many different top scientists from the Netherlands and abroad. Her most ambitious work so far is called Impos, and also focused on reproductive technologies and questions around sex and gender, like Annie Liu did. In this, Charlotte works closely with development biology professor Susana Chuva de Souza Lopez, and they are on a mission to make female semen. Throughout history, semen has been revered as a magical substance, a totem of literal and symbolic potency. The project IMPOS aims to rewrite this cultural narrative, to use art and science to collaboratively disrupt the patriarchy by making semen from female cells. The project is being developed in 3 parts. Firstly, IMPOS is on a journey to grow spermatozoa sperm cells from Charlotte's body in collaboration with Professor Susana Chuva de Souza Lopez. At the same time, a female form of seminal plasma, the fluid part of semen, has been developed using material donated by multiple women, trans and gender non-binary people. Finally, the female semen is used in a series of reenactment of the ancient Greek women-only festival of Thesmophoria. In a way, Charlotte is building on the more philosophical idea of writer Paul B. Preciado, who stated that the 21st century struggle is no longer about predictive power, but about reproductive power. And now I go back one step, because I forgot to talk about the surrogacy, another work by Annie Liu. The other work is called The Surrogacy, and it's from 2022. It depicts the uterus of a pig that is pregnant with human fetuses, raising questions of ethics both in the exploitation of animals and current human surrogates. The surrogacy explores the idea of a future in which genetically engineered livestock might someday incubate our children. This work was inspired by real research done in interspecific pregnancies to incubate endangered species. With this, we go from the more hydro to the radical feminist side of things, although fluids are still quite present. What Annie Liu is opening up with this project is the argument that biological differences in reproductive roles is one of the central challenges that leads to gender inequality. Does the ability to defer pregnancy indefinitely liberate women to pursue career and life in equal strides with men? Or is it systemic policy and political and cultural norms around pregnancy that need re-innovating? As the biological sciences continue to innovate, the surrogacy is a provocation that asks viewers to question the relationship between the options that technology brings and how they confront our cultural and emotional values. Questioning life at DNA, cellular and interspecies level is also something Norwegian-born artist Heather Dewey Hagborg likes to do. With her, we also worked on many projects over the years, like her film T3511 from 2018 that was co-produced by MU. T3511 is a genomic detective story and biological romance. The 4-channel video installation follows the artist who falls in love with an anonymous saliva donor as she profiles their DNA. The work draws the viewer into an emerging world of ubiquitous genomic sequencing, biobanking, and the market in human biological materials. The artist analyzes the donor's DNA and then cultures and attempts to grow their cells on her own body. The story is told in voiceover through a series of love letters to the anonymous donor. With this work, Heather forecasts the ways in which DNA data could be used to re-identify anonymous individuals. T3511 examines the commodification of cells and the growth of direct-to-consumer genetic testing services, asking questions about how relationships, family, and day-to-day life are likely to change in the imminent future as biotechnology becomes part of our everyday lives. A more recent work of hers we have shown is called Hybrid, an interspecies opera, in which the viewer journeys from cutting-edge genetic engineering to the very origins of pig domestication in 10 millennia ago, and back to the wild boars still inhabiting our forests. This documentary and personal narrative is set to an original score and presents an intimate account of the interspecies relationship at the heart of the science of xenotransplantation, specifically the genetic engineering of pigs to supply human hearts. And it links back, of course, to the surrogacy of Annie Liu. The film begins from the question of whether CRISPR gene editing represents a radical rupture or rather a continuation of the millennia-old practices of selective breeding. It presents documentary footage from rarely seen porcine research facilities and archaeological archives of early animal domestication. The libretto is constructed from the words of key scientists engaged in this new field of research and archaeologists studying the origins of domestication, taken from original interviews conducted by the artist. The film concludes with the creation of a set of memorial sculptures for the pigs we see on screen, whose lives are taken to advance science and potentially save human lives. Drawing on cutting-edge digital imaging and printing techniques, we see the robotic construction of a clay sculpture, which ends in flames, fired in a pit in the ground using the earliest of ceramic methods. Thus the ancient and the high-tech meet in an artwork that goes beyond simply educating audiences to making them feel the dramatic weight of these new technologies, their complexities and long histories. The result is a whirlwind tour of a biomedical field with massive implications for ethics, aesthetics, and the fluctuating state of human-non-human relations. Next up are Taiwanese artist Kwang Yi-Koo and professor of dermatology and sexually transmitted diseases Henry de Vries. Together they created the Atlas of Queer Anatomy, starting as a BAD Award-winning project in 2022 and winning an honorary mention at Ars Electronica this year. Again, we will show a video.
There's a lack of gender diversity and inclusivity in medical training and medical school. For example, we take the Atlas of Human Anatomy made by Natures as an example. There's no Asian body or people of color in the book, but in Taiwan, when I was in medical school, we still use that book as a textbook to learn medicine. So that's one of it. We start with the book. We call it Atlas of Queer Anatomy. It is a critique, try to find other possibility to explore how to interpret anatomy in a new way with more diversity and inclusivity. This artistic project, I would like to propose a chapter to blur this boundary between healthy and unhealthy. And I put all the image of microbes we regard it as a pathogen and with our body parts. So it's kind of a mixture of human body part and microbial living things. When they are in our body, we cannot see it. So how to visualize them within the context of all the body parts. So I somehow play with the scales, put them in the same level in the one image. So scientifically, it's wrong. But I hope bring more imagination and creativity into this process of illustrating interspecies interaction. Basically, the goal of our project is to open up the possibility and reverse this discrimination in LGBTQI plus community. So we make this colorful, festive-ish visual interpretation of STI and anatomy, and basically we are trying to propose a different way to see this topic. We celebrate it instead of stigmatizing it. The discrimination of LGBTQ plus community in STI is quite urgent and important to deal with. Some of the medical doctors are straight people and they are not familiar with sexual activity in queer community. So when they are making diagnosis for queer people who have STIs, it causes also is a problem because they might misunderstood some of the transmission routes, and then the patient from queer community could not get the proper treatment and proper access to the sexual health. Yeah, so that's problematic for sure. Atlas of Queer Anatomy in the exhibition now is work in progress. So in the future, we are planning to do more chapters with more topics within the context, and we want to involve more artists and scientists to work with us to bring out more insight and open up the diversity and inclusivity.
Another winner of an award of distinction at Ars Electronica in 2021 is the project TX1 by artist, scientist, and self-declared xenologist Adriana Knoef. This artwork made a tour not many artworks do, as it went on to ISS space station for a month in the spring of 2020. Knoef is a transgender woman, and in her experience, the enchanting Earth is too often made inhospitable to those marked as transgender. To survive, they xenomography themselves through social and biological technologies, altering their surfaces, their viscera, their molecular balances. None of them have been to space, even though they possess somatic knowledges of deep bodily transformations, necessary experiences for extraterrestrial environments. But with TX1, she launched bits of her hormone replacement medications, marking the first known time that elements of transgender experience orbit the Earth. TX1 includes a fragment of her spironolactone pill, a slice of her estradiol patch, and a miniature handmade paper sculpture included to gesture towards the absent yet present xeno-entities of the cosmos. A symbolic exodus to an orbit high above, the eventual return of TX1 to Earth is also a sign of resilience, of not being disposed, of coming back to thrive once again. This project got selected through MIT Media Lab Space Explorations Initiative, first international artwork open call, which provided the launch opportunity and stay at ISS. At the moment, we are working together again, MU and Adriana Knoef, on a quantum project, but that comes back later. Also fascinated by outer space, but in a different way, is Taiwanese artist and designer Hanglu Chan, who together with scientists Floris de Lange, Floortje Bouwkamp, Matthias Ekman, developed Close Encounters with Inner Aliens as a BAD Award-winning project in 2023. And it's also on view here at the Biennale. They will tell all about it in this video.
This project starts from my curiosity about how I try to re-explore aliens as an internal phenomenon.
How we visualize something completely outside of us by looking inside yourself. I thought that was a really cool idea. I really like that. And it aligns super well with how I think our minds work.
Images that I created.
I'm a cognitive neuroscientist, so that means that I study the brain to understand how the brain creates the mind. How does our brain generate our reality?
How humans imagine aliens. It's actually a projection of our fears and hopes toward the future. We have 4 participants, 3 humans and 1 AI. And those participants I actually choose it from different cultures, ages, and genders. So I thought, yeah, I really need to put myself as one participant. I asked the participant to lie down in the fMRI machine, and we asked them to view through like 200 images. The scanner will record the participant's brain reaction.
We needed that because every brain is unique. And that was what we could use to train sort of an algorithm to recognize how that brain worked. Because now, in another session, the participants went in to just imagine particular items. And of course, there was nothing on the screen then. So all the activity in our visual system during those moments is generated just purely by the thoughts that people had.
I asked the participant to imagine not only aliens but also alien landscapes. And in the end, one of the outcome of the project is the visualization of all the participants' inner aliens. Well, somehow, like, she see this outline.
When Michael asked me if I wanted to be one of the guinea pigs, I immediately said yes. I got the idea that it would show something of myself that you normally never see or never experience. Lying in the fMRI is a strange kind of feeling. Normally you get in there when something is wrong. Beautiful. And it felt more like a portal now into maybe oblivion or space. And then there's a little hole in it. And when you're in there for 2 hours, seeing all these pictures and having to focus on them, your activity in your brain, you feel it changing.
The image looks so mysterious. The first time I saw those images, I was like, I don't really know what to think. It's like speechless might be the word to describe the feeling. One participant imagined her alien is a light. And on her image, I couldn't see that thing. But for her, she immediately can pinpoint, oh, this is right here. This is how I imagine. I was like, okay, I didn't expect that. You know, if you already have something in mind with your imagination, it somehow influences your perception of the reality. So that is something crazy thing for me.
Our brains are combining a lot of knowledge that they have generated over their lifetimes with the information that comes in from the eyes.
I investigate the interpretation of aliens not only personally from 3 participants but also collectively from AI. And AI is kind of like the software that's trained by a mass collected human knowledge, which also includes collected human bias towards aliens. So that's why I include AI. And I think surprisingly, it's quite reflective on its identity as an AI.
Its form is ethereal and translucent, constantly changing in shape and color, embodying the AI's capacity for transformation and learning.
British accent. I thought they're gonna say something really typical from a fiction novel, like humanoid body, gray skin, something like that. But in the end, they say something really resonate with its own identity. Yeah.
We've tried to develop a pipeline that takes brain scans of brain activity while people are imagining things and try to convert that into actual images. Trying this out and trying to see how we can move forward that technology, I think will have also consequences for our research down the line.
The next artist I would like to introduce is Lucy McRae, who is also present in the exhibition here with her solitary survival raft that MU co-commissioned in 2020. Should I do this again? Maybe with the speaker? Yeah. So next up is Lucy McRae with her solitary survival raft that MU co-commissioned in 2020 and her film Futurekin, both also present in the exhibition here. Solitary survival raft is a machine that comforts a single body as it drifts into the unknown. This artwork explores how we can reconcile the human urge to explore new frontiers while tending to fear. The raft is an exploration of where we are at rather than a demonstration of survival. Do you drop off the edge when you reach the horizon or merge closer to truth when you give fear the cold shoulder? The artist considers her job to be that of an interpreter, a canary in a coal mine. She tunes into subtle signals and translates them. To her, the world is giving off a fuzzy signal and overwhelming sense of uncertainty. She asks herself, how can we occupy various edges, remain calm, and resist our ingrained chase for stability? Unfortunately, you can only see a picture of the raft here, but I can assure you it was laying well, yet giving an otherworldly sense of silence before the storm. In addressing imbalances of power, McRae's other work, Futurekin, looks at science as an instrument for exacting gender equality. The idea that gender equality can never be reached until women are unburdened from carrying babies is a concept from author Donna J. Haraway in the essay Cyborg Manifesto. Outsourcing reproduction is not solution-driven, rather motivates the urgency and significance of asking impossible questions. In this post-CRISPR world, kids are brought to term and grown in complex, sensitive wombs in a lab. The speculation acknowledges the development of different unfamiliar neurobiological quirks through lack of touch and absence of fetal programming in the womb. By virtue of being separated from pregnancy, science and biotech become in vitro paternal-maternal surrogates. This far future what-if replaces abortion with a plethora of incomprehensible ethical unknowns. Scientists are accelerating ways to direct our evolutionary path, and powerful genetic engineering tools such as CRISPR, a gene editing technology, can fundamentally redesign our species. Be it gene-edited babies or kids grown in artificial wombs, playing with the very building blocks of life creates terror and inspiration in equal measure. The following project is more of a world-building project made by Dutch theater art collective I highly appreciate, called Boogaard van der Schoot. They created a special space-filling landscape for MU called Womb Tombs. It consisted of cocoons-like bandaged shelters suspended in an undulating landscape with hidden small pools. The landscape became an in-between space, a bardo of dust that becomes dust again, just as everything that lives becomes dust again, or becomes liquid. Floating, bearing, lifting, carrying, intricate life, retreating into a carrier bag, referring to sci-fi author Ursula K. Le Guin's essay. Seemingly dead on the outside, but bubbling, transforming, incubating inside. We could move past it, mourning the soup of life, working our way through the compost heap, where we digest the old and make space for. I'm going to show the short clip now. Writer Vanessa Machado de Oliveira calls this guiding of Boogaard van der Schoot, the previous film, of the irreversible dying process of our toxic society, hospicing modernity. Inspired by her thinking, Boogaard van der Schoot asked visitors to come together in the organic and technological cracks of our disintegrating world in order to caringly help it to its end. They were supported by Bolivian artist and shaman Ibelis Guardia Ferraguti, who you could see in the film, who colored the landscape with polyphonic sound sculptures and regularly presided over morning rituals in which the audience could participate. Then we step to the next artist, which is British artist Alexandra Daisy Ginsberg, who is also dealing a lot with extinction. Her first work I'd like to show is called Resurrecting the Sublime, and was made in close collaboration with smell researcher Sissel Tolas and Dr. Christina Agapakis of Ginkgo Labs. It asks the question whether we could ever again smell flowers driven to extinction by humans. The answer is yes, partly, as Resurrecting the Sublime uses tiny amounts of DNA extracted from specimens of 3 extinct flowers stored at Harvard University's herbaria. Synthetic biologists of ginkgo then predicted and resynthesized their gene sequences that might encode for fragrance-producing enzymes. Then Sissel Tolas used her expertise to reconstruct the flower smells in her lab, using identical or comparative smell molecules, thus recreating the Hibiscadelphus wilderianus of Maui in Hawaii, the Orbeculum stipulatum, or Falls of the Ohio scurf pea, that drowned in the 1920s after a dam was built, and the Leucadendron grandiflorum, growing in the shadow of Table Mountain in Cape Town, South Africa. While we can use technology to reach back into the past and learn which smell molecules the flowers may have produced, the flowers themselves are lost forever. Alexandra Daisy Ginsberg therefore created a glass shrine for them in which the fragments of each flower's smell diffuses and mixes with the others, introducing contingency. There is no exact smell. The lost landscape is reduced to its geology and the flowers smell. The human connects the two, and in contrast to a natural history museum, the human becomes the specimen on view in the glass box. Using genetic engineering to resurrect the smell of extinct flowers so that humans may again experience something we have destroyed is awesome and terrifying at the same time. This is not de-extinction. Instead, biotechnology, smell, and reconstructed landscapes allow us to once again experience a flower blooming on a forested volcanic slope, in the shadow of a mountain, or on a wild river bank, revealing the interplay of species and places that no longer exist. Resurrecting the Sublime therefore asks us to contemplate our actions and potentially change them for the future. Ginsberg's other work I want to show here is called The Substitute, and also mourns an extinct species, this time the last male northern white rhinoceros, Ceratotherium simoncotoni, that died in 2018. We briefly mourned a subspecies lost to human desire for the imagined life-enhancing properties of its horn, but were soon enough comforted that it might be brought back using biotechnology, albeit gestated by a different subspecies. I think there are 2 female rhinoceroses still alive, so that's one of the good things. But would humans protect a resurrected rhino having decimated an entire species? And would this new rhino be real? The Substitute explores a paradox, our preoccupation with creating new life forms while neglecting existing ones. Ginsberg brings back to life a northern white rhino in a digital way, informed by developments in the human creation of artificial intelligence. Based on research from AI lab DeepMind, the rhino performs as an artificial agent, an autonomous entity that learns from its environment. A life-size projection, 5 meters wide, shows the artificial rhino roaming in a virtual world, becoming more real as it comprehends the limits of the space. As the artificial rhino habituates to its space, its form and sound toggle from pixelation to lifelike, reminding the viewer that this living, breathing rhino, coming to life without its natural context, is entirely artificial. The rhino's behaviors and sounds are adapted from rare research footage of the last herd. Question is whether this rhino, coming to life, divorced from its natural contact, is a better substitute for the real. The following artists are again BAD Award winners. They form the Scandinavian collective Non-Human Nonsense. The first work I like to show of them is the Pink Chicken Project 2017, a speculative bioengineering proposal that envisions using a groundbreaking biotechnology called gene drive to genetically modify the bones and feathers of all chickens worldwide, turning them pink. Geologists predict that chicken bones will serve as a key marker of the Anthropocene, the epoch defined by human impact on the planet. By altering the future fossil record, this intervention would imprint a pink line into the rock strata. So you can see that here. Beyond its visual impact, the artists envision each chicken to carry a manifesto encoded in its DNA, a genetic message that questions the power structures driving the Anthropocene's destruction and highlights the connection between social and ecological justice. Presented as an activist campaign, this speculative proposal challenges to critically reflect on the ethical and political dimensions of emerging biotechnologies. How does genetically altering an entire species compare to the existing violence inflicted on billions of chickens in factory farms? In a world where human influence continually reshapes nature, how can we cultivate more ethical relationships with non-human species? With their second project, they won the BAD competition in 2022, called Mud and Flood, The Return of Nehelenia. They built a contemporary shrine or temple to a long-forgotten goddess of Zeeland in the Netherlands. Once again, she emerges as the 21st century hydrofeminist created by an image-generating AI. In chorus with scientists from the Royal Netherlands Institute for Sea Research, she teaches us that the border between land and water should be a soft border, not a hard border of basalt blocks and high dikes, as it is the mud and vegetation of coastal ecosystems that protect us from rising waters. The story of Nehelenia, dating back to the 2nd century before Christ, can teach us to understand why transitional areas are important and give meaning to the sacrifice of human spaces for non-human habitats. It recreates a living relationship with the sea that was once lost, but is now returning based on scientific understanding. The resurrection of a pre-Roman goddess is an attempt to create a story that is rich and local, and at the same time part of a global discourse, in which the climate emergency forces us to re-evaluate our entire relationship to non-human beings and forces. This realization is controversial because it means we have to give up some agency and control, actual or imagined, over the natural forces of water. In some places, dikes will have to be opened and some of the reclaimed land returned to the sea. People will have to move, mosquitoes and smells might return, and we have to accept some risks as we renegotiate a cohabitation with natural processes. How we can only look at nature and the non-human through our human eyes, understanding and experiences, is core to the work of Finnish artist Maija Tammi. Her big multimedia artwork, Hulda and Lily, for instance, examines empathy through storytelling. The work is an inventive human experience which aims to draw out an emotional reaction and encourages viewers to probe into the making of their feelings. The immersive installation offers two paths with different perspectives. Who or what will you empathize with? In the work, anthropomorphism, seeing human-like features in other animals and beings, is calculated, and the visitors might be led astray at a first glance. Her other work, On the Third Day, is commissioned by MU. It is telling the symbiotic story of a wasp and a cockroach. On the Third Day consists of a large projection of colorful flower petals and an animated short. The animation centers around a cockroach trapped in a cave. It doesn't know how it got there, nor what will happen next. Meanwhile, something is growing beneath its body. But what could it be? The cockroach has 3 days to figure it out. It's a true natural symbiotic story. Similar to Hulda and Lily, On the Third Day encourages contemplation of our ability to empathize with being vastly different from ourselves. The animation, minimalist in style, yet rich in symbolism, draws viewers into an intimate space, encouraging contemplation of the vulnerability of life and the complexity of predictive minds. How and what do we see? and what happens when things get uncanny. Through deliberate anthropomorphism, Tammy encourages us to reflect on ascribing human qualities to non-human animals. By upholding a human perspective, we seek to connect our experiences, emotions, and the world around us. This helps us to empathize with other beings by interpreting their behavior and emotions in a way that is familiar and human-like. But does this approach truly lead to a deeper understanding, or do our biases influence our perceptions? With Australian-born and world-traveling artist Liam Young, MU holds a long-term collaboration that has also known many forms. One of his early works in a group show led to several other projects. MU and Stripe, the creative technology biennial I also directed for 7 years, has co-commissioned. Under Tomorrow's Skies was one in 2012, where Liam gathered an international think tank to collectively think and build a future sustainable city model in 3D, enriched by many stories and ideas in different media, from film to literature. Only 9 years later, this developed into a megalomaniac film project and book that speculates on gathering all human life from all continents into one big city structure, in order to leave nature on the rest of the planet thrive on its own, without extractivist human entities that only lead to destruction and climate disaster. He will tell, as he can do best, himself in this video. Yes, you are. Yes. The project is to enhance the world. It's really done. You should show it in the final state.
Lifestyle changes that we might start to bring to problem of global pandemics or particularly problems with climate change. So I think that there's a real urgency in these processes of the world to try and put forward propositions and prototype possibilities of how we might live through different Planet City, like most worlds, isn't a proposal for what should happen. It's not a rule book, it's not a template
seeds of potential changes are in them. And we might cherry pick and take little fragments out of a world like Planet City and think about how they might be applied in their own context. So it's really about prototyping possibilities and seeing which ones work, which ones don't work. You know, there's a real value in thinking about the future, not in a way of trying to predict what's to come, but to create a condition where we can think about the choices that we're making right now. The future is a vast, dark and shadowed landscape in front of us, and each one of these world-building projects we might do is a kind of a torchlight that we can kind of shine out into that territory, and the more torches that we have shining, the more we can see and map that potential landscape, the more we can make strategic choices about the path that we can follow. So that's the real value of the scaffold, learning ways.
So, well, as Liam says, the future is a vast landscape with several entrances, and like he builds the digital envisioning, but also always incorporates avatars and players within his work, and same does the. A similar way of working is done by the collective Maison de Faux, which is a Dutch collective that we are working with for a couple of years now. They come from fashion and are moving into like big stage shows, almost like operas. And with them, we researched and envisioned the complex experience of time and timelessness, the lack of time and eternal value. Questions like, do we lose or gain time with the passing of the years? Is mortality on our heels, or do we just think it is? Does physical deterioration only make us vulnerable and fearful of death, or is it the driving force to create, to philosophize, to believe, and to destroy? All these questions were at the heart of the project we called Timeless Time. In the meandering installation that was the result, covering all of our space, 3 performers made scenes come to life at set intervals. As in a story ride without beginning or end, the audience was drawn into a timeless cycle of creation and decay. Experience how time affects the essence of making and that which is made. Everything changes with the ticking of time, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, while matter and maker themselves unmistakably change with it. Of this, I also have a short video clip. From world building like Maison de Faux is doing, we hop on from fashion industry, mixing it with bioart by Ukrainian Dasha Tsapenko, who also won a BET Award and collaborated with biologist Han Wösten on Fertilize. Trained as an architect in the Academy of Fine Arts in Ukraine and as a social designer in Design Academy Eindhoven, Tsapenko's work explores the mutually defined relationship between human bodies and the designed domestic space, as well as daily rituals performed in these spaces. She combines tools of fashion, architecture, performance, and microbiology to unpack social and spatial interactions, question the existing daily routines, as well as speculate about the future in a variety of formats: personal artistic projects, research, and education. Fertilize consists of 5 grown fur coats, show 5 use cycles of one garment, and illustrate how different species support each other, increasing the value of a particular piece over time. Hemp fiber mat is used as a base material for the coats. The first cycle demonstrates the process of reinforcement. The Schizophyllum commune fungus strain is placed in the hemp following a specific pattern to make it sturdy. In the second cycle, a strain of the opposite sex of the same fungus is added. The fungus takes over the hemp and creates a soft coating all over the coat. In the third cycle, the strain of both sexes produce spores and fruiting bodies, making it possible to harvest edible mushrooms from the coat. In the fourth cycle, the seeds of a crop species from the legumes family cover the harvested hemp mycelium composite. Legumes are responsible for the process of nitrogen fixation, preparing the growing coat medium for more elaborated crops. After the harvest of the fur of legumes, in the final 5th cycle, the growing medium is fertile and ready to host almost any kind of crop. I'm going to show you the video of how they were making and collaborating.
I've been always interested in growing processes. And the forest is a very good example because it's a full ecosystem that shows how different species work together and how they support together. The interesting aspect is the aspect of symbiosis. One species supports another species in order to achieve something. Fungus is a very good example of symbiosis because it's very known for the process of microorganisms. And this principle became a principle for the project that we work on now. It was Han Wilson, which is called fertilizers. The project Fertilize makes experiments in growing fur, and it's embodied in 5 fur coats that illustrate how one object grows in them using the processes of symbiosis and using the mushrooms as the value of that.
In nature, fungi grow on plant waste streams, and it can be either wood, it can be vegetable waste, it can also be straw-like material, and every fungus specializes more or less in a certain waste stream. So what we had to do in this project is to fit the certain fungus we work with in the lab with a certain waste stream.
I already had the mushroom in mind that I actually had known before, which is called Schizophyllum communis, and we were really excited to make all these tryouts with this mushroom.
Dasha really liked the small mushrooms that we produce with our fungus in the lab. We have a lot of experience with this particular mushroom form fungus.
So basically first we take a base, and with the base we were not sure at the moment. Our initial thought was just to take the straw, because that's obviously what the mycelium eats.
Dasha looked at all kinds of materials that are being used in the textile industry and to see whether it's compatible with our fungus.
I never worked before, but after already 2 weeks of experiments I realized, well, they have their own agenda, so I can't put my expectations. So I'm trying to sit aside and facilitate these and just like be happy when something pops up.
So we started to grow on cotton and cheesecloth and hemp and other materials, and we ended up with hemp being the best substrate, as we call it, to grow our fungus.
What was funny with hemp, because Ukraine, where I come from, it's much more used there. It was used from early, far
shows that indeed we can combine plant materials that are already used in the textile industry, combine that with fungi, that you get new materials with novel properties that we did not have before.
The project has a couple of layers on different sides. The first layer is to challenge and to question the linear and the outcome-oriented notion of fashion and to introduce more process-based and sustainable way. That's why the outcome of the project are garments. And they are 5 codes, and these 5 codes demonstrate how one particular garment grows in value with each cycle of the phase 1, it was supposed to be cheesecloth stuffed with straw. Phase 2, this down jacket, was supposed to be inoculated with mycelium. Phase 3, small mushrooms that are also eatable. In phase 4, after the mushrooms are consumed, all kinds of legumes, which can be also consumed and eaten. And phase 5, you can plant in the mycelium layer almost anything. All these layers, they create a kind of fur, so they all are fur coats. That's why the name of the project is Fertilized.
Looks a bit like yes. So last but not least, of the 20 artists I wanted to introduce in this lecture is Slovenian artist and scientist Spela Petric, who won a BAD Award in 2014 for the first time, but has since been involved in many ways in the BAD competitions, but also in the MU program. This year we will show her work Play at MU. It's the third work in the series Plant Machine. Play showcases a playful interaction between a cucumber plant and a robot lasting for several months as the plant grows. The installation embraces the notion of play as an ontological or natural condition of all living bodies, including plants. The act of playing, unlike games which are limited by clear rules or goals, reflects the uncertain character of existence and is therefore at the heart of discovery. Also of this we have a nice video, and that will be the last video.
I've intently tried staring at the plants to see it change, but I realized that it's very difficult for me to stay focused and keep the memory of this gradual change. But for the computer, that's quite easy, right? For the past 2-3 years, I've been working on this opus called The Plant Machine, and it looks at how actually in the eye of the algorithm we all seem to be already plants. The algorithm cannot tell the difference between human and a plant through the data it gets. I found that to be a really interesting turn, right? When we are all looking towards plants that are otherwise fully ignored, part of the scenery, and we're trying to rescue them from this ignorance or plant blindness that we have. By looking at the properties of algorithms and this surveillance capitalism within which we live, I came to realize that we as humans find ourselves now in a very similar position as we've put the plants into. So that was sort of the starting point of thinking how actually to make algorithms for plants is to actually write algorithms for ourselves as well. I've been working on projects that explore this kind of interaction. The first one was about reading lips, completely misunderstanding plants in a sort of humorous way, but also pointing to our insistence on using language as a way we communicate with plants, right? The second one was about this technology of biosurveillance that we very willingly wear, like smartwatches specifically. And in that project, it was the plants that were wearing the smartwatches and sending information about their activity to the gluttonous data centers. And then this third one is called Play, and it's really about a plant and an AI that's embodied in this robot trying to play with each other. We are using the not so modest cucumber, which actually grows with tendrils. So the tendrils kind of move around and they are looking for something to grab onto. If it touches the tendrils that the computer is moving really slowly, that sends a signal to the computer to tweak its image according to that. We also have a LiDAR scanner to take 3D scan of the plants as they're moving about. All algorithms use this self-learning capacity. Basically, there's two components, one that creates and the other one that discriminates, and then they sort of teach each other. And here, actually, the AI is the generator, so that's its imaginary space, whereas the plant is the discriminator. So the plant here also acts to create the image of the computer acting. The point is not that it captured the plant as it is in its reality, but in its possibility. To get these results that I've been really looking forward to will take a little while longer because the whole project is unfolding at plant space. And that's also the reason why we are making this project, because we have no idea what will come out of it.
Showing this work that we had at MU in 2020 when the exhibition opened and after 3 days had to close because of COVID-19. We are now in the lucky position of bringing the same work back in our coming exhibition that is being built as we speak, and it's called Other Intelligences, which it fits to very well as it did back then to the exhibition we planned. And it's maybe more planned pace, like Spela is herself referring to, like the time a plant needs to grow and to really play and interact with its surrounding. So I won't bother you anymore with all other things that we are planning. I want to thank you for your attention. And looking forward to meeting you again, either online or in person at some point. Because what I always think is important is not only sending, but having conversations and a dialogue about what art can be and what artists are dealing with and the territories they are exploring. So hopefully we get to talk some more in the future.
Yeah, actually we still have a Q&A part because people are reacting online, which is really nice. And I think although it's some shy and everyone is still to try to move everything from outside to inside to make sure there's not the typhoon are not hit, like we removed all the sculpture outside of the museum. But I'm so happy to bring you here to be present to the Macau people, to get people to see. When I first encountered Mu, and I was seeing a show in there, and I was just thought, oh, it's so nice place, so nice. It's like there's enough things happening in that little house, not more than 2,000 square meters, and and it's make me really curious. It's opened my other way of understanding. So we can see the quality of last 15 years, what you have been, even 20 years of more and 15 years of bad art, although it's bad, but it's good. So
good bad art.
Good bad art. So in that, how to bring the art and science and design together, how to stimulate in that in a way. It's not easy, to be honest. We know how difficult that it is. The scientists don't fit with the artists. The artists don't fit with designers sometimes. So they are biting to each other. So we also would like to learn more about it. I think all the other Macau citizens would like to learn more about you. So they might have questions.
Thank you so much for Ms. Angelique and our moderator, Mr. Liu. Thank you so much. Now we move into the Q&A section. If you have one, please leave your questions in the live chat room. And thank you again. We are delighted to host this special extension activity of the Art Macao 2025 main exhibition, curated by the internationally acclaimed Mr. Feng Boyi, with co-curator Mr. Liu Gang and Ms. Wu Wei. This year's theme, Hey, What Brings You Here?, invites deep reflection on Macao's cultural narrative within our interconnected world. Okay, here comes the first questions for Ms. Angelique. Thank you for sharing so many artists for us. First, we know that you recommend some art pieces in the main exhibition in this year's Art Macao 2025. Could you share the screening criteria about how to choose the artists for those commissioned works, please?
I got the information about the theme of the biennial, and then I started thinking about what artists could fit to this theme, because it's a very open theme and welcoming theme, but it also holds, it has many layers to it. So it can be a friendly invitation, but it can also be a more challenging probe of what brings you here, like a question. And I think all the works I recommended have to do with these multi-perspective ways of being. So one of the works that wasn't in my presentation, but that I hold very dear, is Bart Hesse's performance and video work with the wax, and how he uses the material of the hot wax in cold water on a human body, and then creating something very delicate and fragile, but it's kind of like a terrifying process to make it. So it has these different aspects to it. And when I first saw it in Lisbon, I was, and I know Bart very well, I was truly amazed by it, because you watch it in silence, and it comes into being and breaks right after, and still holds genuine presence when it's hanging as some sort of dress. So I think that type of work is about becoming something, or becoming as a human being, and then how time and influences from outside also change you again. So it's a work of transformation, and I think the theme of the biennial is a lot about encountering and transformation through time and through meeting people, but also circumstances that we all deal with.
Thank you so much. Maybe Mr. Liu can share some?
Yes, I think it's really nice we have this long-term relation of sharing the artist. We also introduced Li Bingyuan to present on her space on Mu for solo exhibition. So I truly want to bring Angelique here, not only about to seeing this show, and also to developing and to see Macau artists in this field, and to see them how they deal with it, and to bring a Macau artist to go to international space, to working with international space. Unfortunately, this typhoon ruined our studio visit, but still we would like to see if we have an opportunity to bring Angelique here another time. I would like to introduce more artists in this museum to Angelique, to bring them to abroad. So that's also really important. I think in these difficult times of exchanging, we still making it. So that's really important.
Okay, let's looking forward to see you again next time in Macau. And also we have questions about AI. AI is the current trend worldwide today. We wonder, how do you think AI will affect the artistic creation? Could you share some thoughts for us?
Well, it's mainly thoughts, because there's too much going on in AI developments.
We got time.
Yeah. But what I find interesting in seeing AI rise and being used by artists in several ways is, like, especially in bio art and design projects over the last couple of years, it creeped in very fast and was being used in many interesting ways, also critically used. Because a lot of the way artists use AI is to research and to enhance visualizations, but they're not creating it as the artwork itself so much. It just helps them as a tool. What I find interesting in a more broader sense about AI coming into being, and I'm very critical of the way the large language models are being developed and eat all data and all art previously made to spit out remakes all the time, and they're usually not better. What I really like about AI and where I think is the potential is in the way it opens up the possibility between machine and human interaction. So last year we did a big show with an Amsterdam-based art collective also that is very much in digital culture, and we called it the poetics of prompting, because everybody is mainly looking at the output of what AI is generating, but what I find interesting is what goes in. So the prompt, what you have to create or to write to get an AI to do anything is the starting point. And a lot of what is being done is many people call it prompt engineering, which immediately draws it in the direction of technology and functionality and productivity, while I think a prompt can also be poetic. Why not, as artists or filmmakers or musicians or writers, think about the poetics of prompting? I think there's a huge potential there that is not explored enough yet, and I think there are possibilities there also to develop small emotional language models. Like, we all have body language, and the AI doesn't understand our body language at all. In fact, maybe we ourselves don't really understand our own body language anymore. So why not create small emotional language models that train us and the AI at the same time in performing and learning how to creatively use machine-human interaction and find out new territories to explore. So those are two ideas I have on AI and art.
What about Mr. Liu?
I think we just talked about it. AI is also a sensitive situation at this moment. We just talked about in the lunch, and I think it is unfair with the whole world. The big countries and the big countries has a big companies has a big data, and they will always go advance than the others sometimes. But still,
big isn't always better.
No, it's not even always better. But they get, like poor, they do not have even computers and the things. So to critical on this, it's unfair situation, creative even bigger gap of the world. But I think sometimes we should not always forget when we have these problems, the art is always the place to crushing about it, to critical about it. So art is not about answer questions. Many times it's about rising up questions and make people taking attention. I think that's what art can do. And that's what we try to do also this time in this museum for this biennial, to make it more questions for people who are arriving here.
Okay, thank you. So one last question. So do you afraid AI can replace some artists?
No, I'm not afraid of that. No, I think, I mean, what I don't like about AI, and especially generative AI, is that it gives the idea of democratizing being an artist to everyone. And in fact, everyone can be an artist, but using an AI tool, you can output as many things as you want with the help of an AI. But I'm still, I'm not convinced that this type of output will genuinely touch anyone deep in the heart. It's, I think, a drawing or a painting or a well thought through poem or a really fantastic film that has many deeper layers of imagery will do that. And for that, you need the artists in combination maybe with AI, but never replace it.
Thank you so much.
And I have to add one thing. Actually, yesterday we had a discussion with Hamilton about the exhibition, which is a public art exhibition happening there, and with Bowie. And yeah, I think there's one words come from Hamilton when we try out with curtain on the chairs of the theater. And he writes up really good questions. We come here for telling narratives, or not even narratives, to giving a really nice portrait, street art as a poetic situations. But we are not come here to give effect. So that's the problem of AI. Many times they give effect. It looks like art. It's not art. That's many times it's a situation at this moment. I cannot criticize 20 years or 30 years later, but until now it's
who can?
It's like that. So I think that's this whole situation.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it's the best conclusion for today. Thank you so much. Thank you again, and for our speakers for those forceful reply, and also thank you for those engaging questions. So we engage you to explore our main exhibition here in Macao Museum of Art during museum hours until October 19th. And also thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you enjoy.
And I would like to thank the team to help us to arrange this video explored quickly since this typhoon is happening. And I would also like to thank Dutch Embassy to help her out to getting here, and the Consulate of Hong Kong of Netherlands was helping her way out. So I would like to thank all who make this possibility, and I would like to find the opportunity to welcome Angelique come here again to meet Macau artists, to meet the artists who are interesting on the Hyper Hotels and Hyper Times.
Okay, well, I'm more than happy to come.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Let's take a photo.
Okay. We'll take one more picture. We take away everything and just make it clean.